Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the live stream. First of all, I want to thank you for watching, whether you're here watching with me live or you're going to be watching the recording. Later on, I want to just thank you for watching. I think these live streams can be really beneficial to you, especially, if you are getting involved. I didn't get any questions this past week from anybody about any particular sort of situation. So I figured I would pick one that I get a lot, especially since we're getting ready to move into the next module, which is about resumes. But before we start that, what I would like to do is I would like to just do a couple announcements here, just get a little bit of housekeeping out of the way. This past Sunday, your first job application assignment was due. I believe I've already gone through and looked at all of those and graded all of those. So you should already have a grade from me on those. It looks like you all are taking that seriously and really putting an effort to try to find, a job or just practice this job application process. So I really appreciate what I've seen so far. Let's keep up the good work. And if any questions come out of these application processes, let me know and we can work through some of that stuff as well. As I look through these, it seems like you all are kind of focused in some good directions. And, I try to comment on things when I can, when you have questions and things like that. So make sure you're checking those comments as well. You'll have the little speech bubble beside your grade in the grade book, and you click on that and you can see my comments. So that's definitely something that you'll want to see when you're checking your grade for that assignment. But since nobody sent me in a question this past week, nobody has any pressing concerns about the job market or finding a job, I thought I'd kind of go back and look at a question that I get asked a decent bit. I think there's somebody that's had this concern every year that I have taught this course, and I've taught this course for quite a while now. But the question is, well, if I've had jobs before, but they're not in IT, they're not in technology, they're not in the place where I want to get a job and further into a career, what do I do on my resume with this experience? They say I don't have any relevant experience, but I've had jobs. What do I write on my resume? And I found this question on the Workplace Stack Exchange, which is one of my favorite go-tos for when I need something to talk about for these live streams, where somebody has asked exactly that question to the community. They've asked, the original poster here, they've titled their post, "Applying for a Job with No Relevant Experience, What to Say in the Resume." And so they go on to have their question here. So I'm building a resume for a friend who is a computer science student. That sounds familiar. That sounds like, all of you. When we're thinking about information technology, it's basically computer science. And seeking an entry job in the industry also should sound familiar to you all. But the problem is that he's never had relevant jobs before. Jobs he's had are cashier at a gas station, security guard. I know in some cases when a relevant experience is worth mentioning, I should include two sections in the resume, relevant and irrelevant experience. Nah, we don't want that. But in this case, should I include one section but add irrelevant jobs, or should I include both relevant and irrelevant sections and add school projects to relevant? Or what should I do? So, having two sections for relevant and irrelevant experience, this is why this person's asking questions, because no, we don't do that. And in my opinion, there is no such thing as irrelevant experience. Because there are things that you learn at every single job that you do that are going to benefit you in other jobs. So this is what we're kind of getting at here when we're looking at, well, I've worked as a cashier at a retail store, or I worked on a car lot washing cars, or I worked as a security guard, or I did some other job. I stocked shelves at a grocery store. I did some other job, and now I'm changing careers, and I'm moving into an IT, into a technical career. So on the surface, they seem very unrelated. And now I want to enter into this career, but all I have is this quote-unquote irrelevant experience. And a lot of this comes back to one of the things that I said last week when I was talking to you all just in our little introduction that we were doing then. You get to control your own narrative, and that's one of the most important parts of this sort of job search. When you're describing what you do and you're describing what you've done, you get to frame it in such a way that you're putting your best foot forward. So this is the absolute biggest advantage that you have in your job search. And this is one of the things that that I try to press a lot as, we're working throughout this semester, is this idea that you get to tell people who you are, what you're capable of, what you know how to do, why you'd be good for them. They don't have to know anything that you don't want them to know, and you can take things that might be a little strange and you can frame them in such a way that they make sense in terms of, being relevant. And, right off the bat, I'm not telling you to lie. I'm telling you to think about the way that you're approaching issues. For example, if I work as a cashier, I'm not going to put on my resume the experience skills that are specific to being a cashier. Right? I'm not going to talk about giving people change. I'm not going to talk about balancing the drawer. I'm not going to talk about how fast I was as a cashier. I got 11 rings per minute. None of that is really relevant. But let's say you're approaching a job like an entry-level job in IT. One of the big entry-level jobs in IT is going to be help desk. Well, what are some things about being a cashier at a store that are relevant to working at a help desk, solving people's technical problems? Well, one thing that you learn a lot of is you learn a lot of customer service skills. You learn how to interact with people. You learn how to communicate. You learn how to deal with the public. So when it comes to relevant versus irrelevant experience, there is relevant experience within everything. It just becomes our job to go in and pick it out. I was maybe you were a security guard. What aspects about being a security guard would be relevant to being in IT? Diligence. Being aware of what's going on, being proactive about checking for things. Like if you worked at a data center versus being a security guard, one of the things, you'd have to do things like, be able to monitor controls with diligence. Have a keen eye for things that are out of place. And really with every job, we end up with these soft skills like, well, I can take a project and I can see it through to the end. So even if you're stocking shelves at a grocery store, right? You can start a project and complete a project in the end of the project. And that's a big deal. Just having the ability to see something all the way through. Being able to work on a project. Being a self-starter. Being self-motivated. Being proactive. These are skills that could apply to any job. That you could frame them in such a way that makes them relevant to other jobs. Being a leader. Like if even if it's something that's just like, oh, I stocked shelves at a grocery store. Again, stuff that's specific to stocking shelves at a grocery store. Not going to really get anybody excited when you're going for an IT job. But when you start looking at some of the stuff you did and thinking about it in more of an abstract way, like, oh, maybe you were like a department manager or an assistant manager, or maybe you just got put in charge of a project, and you could talk about how you led a team through a project. Just being able to show leadership skills, being able to show perseverance, being able to show diligence, being able to show proactivity. So when we think about this idea of relevant versus irrelevant experience, there's relevant experience in everything. Your goal is to try to dig it out and find out where that relevant experience is. Because it's going to be buried. It's going to be buried in all of the specifics of, what you do in a particular job. So it's your opportunity. I'll use that word there. It's your opportunity to be able to craft your narrative, show them the parts of the job that could be relevant to somebody in that sort of position, and present yourself in that way. We can look at some of the things that some of the other people say here on the Workplace Stock Exchange. The first answer here, the top answer, asks them why they would include 2 sections about experience. That's kind of ridiculous. We just want to have one. We're going to call it experience. Because really experience is experience, whether it's relevant or irrelevant. And as we've kind of already said, irrelevant experience doesn't really exist if we're framing it in the right way. It says if you're applying for an entry-level position, it's expected that you may not have much, if any, experience in the field that you're applying for. That's why it's an entry-level job. And, that's a good thing to point out, too. Because when you start thinking about that specific experience that's required for that job. That's why we're taking it back and making it more general. For the ideas of what we do to present ourselves for a job that we might not have all the right experience for. Especially if it's an entry-level job, which most of you would probably be applying for. They're not going to expect you to know everything or have specific relevant experience about an entry-level job. That's where you want to pull out the soft skills. These soft skills, and we'll talk more about soft skills a little later on in the course, but you're wanting to pull out these soft skills from the jobs that you have had that would be relevant in your new profession. Things like working on a team, things like being a self-starter and being able to be intrinsically motivated, seeing projects through to the end, customer service skills, and being able to interact with people. These are all things that you could have in other jobs that would be relevant to IT careers. And really, this top answer here goes on to say as much. However, any work experience can demonstrate your ability to function in a professional environment. Eventually, over time, you may choose to drop some of the less relevant experiences from your resume as you gain more relevant experiences. And that's another thing to kind of bring up as we are approaching our resume module. Because your resume isn't just a document that you make once and then it's a dead document that you hand out for 30 years. It's a document that you're always changing and always updating. And as you move from job to job, wherever that may be, especially in these early parts of your career where you're just getting started, that resume is not going to be stagnant. That resume is something that you're going to have to be diligent about updating. And as you gain relevant experience, then you can get rid of some of that older generic experience from the quote-unquote irrelevant jobs and start adding in that more relevant experience. And that's going to give you a stronger resume. It's going to bolster things up. It's going to make things better. Now, I do want to make a few points, and this is going to be a shorter live stream. The live streams for this class are shorter live streams, especially if nobody's asking questions. But I want to talk just a little bit about your resumes, since Module 2 is about resumes. And just as a quick aside, your Module 1 assignments, all of your Module 1 assignments, your second job application assignment, and all of the Module 1 assignments have to be finished by this coming Sunday at 11:59 p.m. So please make sure you have those completed and turned in by then. If you have any questions, let me know. But as we're approaching our resume module, Module 2, which will start next Monday, there are a couple ways that we have to approach the resume writing process. One is this idea that we've been talking about, that, you get to present yourself the way that you want to present yourself. You get to put your own best foot forward. You get to talk about yourself in a manner in which you think would be most conducive to actually getting you that job. And two, another thing that's important to remember that I feel like I have to tell everybody every year is that your resume and your job search in general is not a place where you try to sell yourself short. It's not a place where you try to make it seem like you're somebody that needs help. What you're trying to do with your resume is you're trying to sell yourself to this company. You're trying to tell them why you would be a valuable asset to them. So if you say something in your personal statement like, "Oh, I'm a quick learner and I'd like to learn about this, this, and this," they don't care about that. They don't care how they can benefit you. Like, it might be an added bonus to them if they're, nice hiring managers. Like, "Oh, well, we could help this person grow." Especially, if they're coming in an entry-level position. But they don't want to know. They don't want to know about that. It's a job. And every job has to go back to that bottom line. And the bottom line, in this case, is going to be, what can you, as the individual, bring to this company? How can you help make this company better by your presence being there? What skills, what abilities, what knowledge do you have that's going to improve the standing of this company? And something that I'll say time and time again, you'll hear me say this multiple times over the course of the semester. I'll talk about the idea of personal experience. Right? Because your personal experience is what makes you valuable as an employee, as an individual in the world. Right? Because there's no one else that has the same unique personal experience as you. Your personal experience is the combination of everything that you know plus everything that you've done. So there's only one person that has your unique personal experience, and that is you. So the big goal of our resume is to try to figure out how we can focus in on this idea of our own personal experience, of the thing that makes us unique, of the thing that makes us valuable, this personal experience, the combination of everything that we know and everything that we've done, We want to be able to focus in on this and sell it to the hiring manager in such a way that they think that your personal experience is going to be an asset to this company. And of course, like everything you know, that includes your education, that includes your experience, that includes things you've done, the things that you've learned from what you've done. So it's practical knowledge plus academic knowledge. Your background, your history, all of these things make you unique, and they make you, in turn, valuable. The trick is figuring out the way to sell it so that these hiring managers understand the value that you actually have and the value that you could bring to their company. If you could find the key to unlock that lock, that's where you're going to be getting the job basically every single time. As long as there's not somebody else whose personal experience is more valuable to that company than yours. And I know in the IT world, it's kind of backwards, right? Like a lot of people want to get into IT because they think it's a career where you can kind of stay in the back room, you don't have to interact with people, and you can just kind of take it easy. And there are some jobs that are kind of like that, but the majority of jobs, they're going to involve, interacting with people. And really, if you look at it from the perspective of, well, I have to interact with my coworkers, I have to interact with my boss, I have to interact with the hiring manager or HR or whomever. If you look at it from that perspective, then every single job requires interacting with people. It requires people skills, which is one of the reasons that I'd like for you to get out there and apply for jobs and take yourself out of your comfort zone and, maybe talk to some hiring managers and do all this different stuff. Because that's, like interviewing with a hiring manager. That's something that can be scary, right? Especially if you haven't done it much. It can be really intimidating to go in front of a panel of people. Because I know like just about every interview that I've been on includes a panel of people. I went on one at one point where, there were 8 or 9 people in the room, and they were all asking me questions. And whether you're the most qualified based on your personal experience to get that job or not, one of the biggest hurdles is being able to be calm, cool, collected, and have this interpersonal interaction with the people that are interviewing you, even when it's really intimidating. And it's okay to be intimidated, and it's okay to be scared, because these are natural feelings that we as individuals, we just have in the world. A job interview just by itself is intimidating, because oftentimes you're going on job interviews because you really, really want or really, really need a job. And we're at the point in the world where, wanting and or needing a job, really needing a job is elemental to survival. You got to have money to have a place to live, to be able to eat. So it's crucial. So these are definitely topics that I want you to think about, the things that I want to bring up as we're approaching this idea of, writing your resumes in Module 2. I'd like for you to really think about them. I'd like for you to really, give a good effort with them. One of the big ideas here is putting your best foot forward. So you're presenting things in such a way that you're selling yourself. And I also know that that's something that we're not accustomed to doing. Because the majority of our lives, we're told, don't be so, don't be so over the top. Don't be so proud. Be more modest. Humble yourself. But in a job application, in a job interview scenario, it's not the time to really be humble. It's time to put yourself over. It's time to brag within reason. Because if you're bringing the knowledge, skills, and abilities, if you're bringing the personal experience to the table that's going to make that company more money, you want them to know all about it. So you have that opportunity. That's where we'll leave the live stream for today. Something big to think about. Remember that your Module 1 assignments are due by 11:59 p.m. on Sunday. Also, make sure that you go back, check the comments on those first job application assignments that were due last week. It's going to be, I'm going to put, I try to put some good stuff in there and try to, give you good feedback. It's going to be specific based on, you and what you're doing. So make sure you have a look at those. If you have any questions, whether there's something I can answer for you personally, or there's something that you'd like to see talked about in a live stream or something of that nature, let me know. Send me a Teams message, send me an email, talk to me if you see me around campus, and we can work it out. So that's all that I have for you for this live stream. Again, thank you for watching. I'm going to hang out in the chat for just a minute before I end the stream, just in case anybody's watching with me live and they have any questions before I stop the stream. But that's, again, all that I have for you. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.